Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's LinkedIn Live. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. I'm the founder and host of Let's Talk Supply Chain, the Blended podcast, and the founder of the Blended Pledge. And I am really excited because today we are partnering once again with the team at Pallet Alliance. So I want to say hi, Mary. It's so good to see you again. I'm so glad that you get to join us today. Now, we recorded an episode together earlier this year for Let's Talk Supply Chain. That was episode 482. Wherever you listen to the podcast, or maybe you watch it on YouTube, go and check that out. And you can also find Mary on our Woman in Supply Chain blog as well. So a little bit of extra content to check out after our discussion today. But today we're going to be talking all about supplier partnerships. Now, as businesses navigate disruptions and try to manage risk, supplier diversification has grown rapidly, but that's led to a whole new set of problems, with data showing at least 40% of companies lack basic tier one supplier visibility, and siloed technology and ways of working doesn't help at all. But despite those challenges, suppliers are fundamental to a business's success, from innovation and cost cutting to sustainability and long-term resilience. So we need to find a way to work together, leverage collaboration for shared value, and we're going to be talking all about that today. Now, if you're tuning in, I want to hear where you are tuning in from. So make sure you put that in the comments. We want to hear from you. If you have any questions throughout the discussion today, make sure to also put those in the comments. And of course, if you like our conversation, you love what we're talking about, I want to see some fire emojis. All right. So Mary, welcome to the show. Why don't you introduce yourself and give us an overview of Pallet Alliance? So tell us who you are, what you do, how you help your customers, but start with you. I want to know who you are.
Oh, who am I? Well, I'm Mary Casillo.
That's a big question on any day. I mean,
It's
I'm
a
just
loaded
saying.
question. I'm the Senior Vice President of Business Development for Pallet Alliance. What Pallet Alliance does is that we work with large Fortune 100 to 500 organizations across the United States, Canada, and Mexico, and we help them to procure pallets on a large scale, but we go beyond procurement, right? We want to go pretty deep into the pallet itself and pallet science. And we want to tailor those solutions specific to the customer with which we're working with. So we want to make sure that every organization who is using a pallet is using the right pallet for the product with which they're placing on top of it. And we want to make sure that we're doing that in the most efficient way possible. And that's with cost as well as with the supply chain. We want you to have a program that is efficient for you and fit for purpose. So I personally get to be the professional friend maker for Pallet Alliance. I get to go out and make those friends and have those conversations. And it's one of my favorite things to do is to talk about pallets with people, because it makes me feel like I know a lot of things that they may not know, because there's a lot of things to know about pallets that people just don't understand. So,
and it's so important to supply chains, like absolutely important. And it could be a competitive advantage. We're going to be talking all about that today. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but I've had pallets in my life for a very long time, not only because I was in logistics. And so pallets were a big part of that, right? Either in ocean freight or in trucking. But pallets really make or break the product, quite literally. If you don't have the right
literally.
products, you know, it could cost safety, like risks and safety on the road. It can also cost you in product if the product is damaged because we're not using the right pallet. And there's a lot of things to think about. And plus, my husband used to work in pallets, so I know a lot of things about pallets, but I learn so much from you every single time, Mary. So let's talk about all of this. So today we want to encourage people to really dig into their partnerships and figure out how they could achieve a lot more value from those relationships. So my first question for you is, how do you think that businesses review their current procurement practices? Where should they start? What should they be looking out for?
Yeah, I think currently a lot of people really need to start paying attention. Obviously, you want to look at your procurement data. I think every organization is different with what they require their procurement teams to take a look at. But when it comes to procurement data, it's what are you purchasing? How much of it are you purchasing? How much are you spending? And then I think to go into a little bit more in depth and to just mention, I think it needs to go a lot deeper than that. And I think we'll cover that today in our conversation of just like the total cost of ownership specific to the pallet, right? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about all of the stuff that's involved in it, because I think if we all understand what's involved on a bigger scale, we'll understand how to better partner with those suppliers who can provide us exactly what we need.
Well, and I think part of that equation is also looking at what the extent of your supplier's capabilities are.
Yeah.
And how
So
do we think about, like, how do we future proof that partnership, or at least what we want to do within our organization with the partners that we choose, right?
yeah, absolutely. So what Pallet Alliance does is we have a Rolodex of over 3,500 pallet and crate manufacturers across the United States, Canada, and Mexico. And one of our main goals, and something that we do on a regular basis, is making sure that we are aligning the customer with the appropriate pallet manufacturer. So if you're a customer who is producing something that requires something very specific, perhaps your pallet requires specific cuts, specific sizes, specific weights, specific species of lumber, specific fasteners, all of the above. What we do is we align our customers with the appropriate manufacturer that can provide them exactly what they're looking for. So you hit the nail right, figuratively and literally hit the nail on the head when it comes to making sure you're aligning with the right supplier.
That is what we're going to be doing today. The analogies, or
Yep.
what are they called? It's analogies, I guess, or
Yeah.
anyways, the references that you and I are going to be making today is going to be off the charts. Before we keep going, I just want to give a shout out to Camilla and Fiorella over on my personal LinkedIn. Thanks for joining us. Camilla says pallets are her thing. So we love to hear that, right? Because it's Mary's thing. And anyways, so originally or earlier, you talked about cost to serve. Right? When we think about procurement practices and we think about where to start, it's not necessarily about the investment that you're making on certain things, including pallets, but it's also the cost to serve the client. Like, what percentage of, your cost to serve is going to your specific vendors or your suppliers, depending on what it is that you're including, pallets included, right? And so cost to serve is a really big deal. I did a LinkedIn Live just a couple of months ago talking about how much of a competitive advantage it is to really understand what that means for your organization.
Yeah, absolutely. Total cost of ownership when it comes to a pallet is extremely important, because you're not just purchasing wood. People think, oh, I just need something to put something on and ship it.
Right.
You're purchasing way more than that. You're purchasing the basically what you're purchasing is 65 to 75% lumber. Beyond that, there are so many costs associated with manufacturing pallets. So understanding that your manufacturing facilities play a big role with how those pallets interact with the machinery that you have. It is mind-blowing the amount of things that go into the total cost of a pallet.
Yeah. Well, and then there's another sort of edge to that sword as well, in the fact that there's a whole other environment around returning or swapping pallets as well on the back end, right? You can move product on a pallet, and we're probably going to be talking about this a little bit later, but you can put your product on a pallet, you deliver the pallet, and then that pallet even has a bit of a life of its own, in the fact that it can either be returned or it can be swapped out with somebody else. There is a whole supply chain to pallets that I don't think most people understand.
Yeah, there's so much that goes into it that if you reach out, excuse me, I have a small dog who is very loud in the background.
Okay.
My apologies for that. If you have, hold one.
That's okay. That's the whole thing about live is that we are going to have dogs and things like that. I'm surprised you can't hear mine. Anyways.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Can we repeat the question so I can get a little in depth?
Yeah. The question was really around like the whole supply chain of a pallet. And I don't know if people
Yeah.
really understand what that actually means because a pallet can have ownership with one organization and it can move throughout the supply chain, but then it can also transfer ownership if you've got pallet exchanges and things like that. And so there's this supply chain of a supply chain that happens with pallets. And I just think it's absolutely interesting. And if you can just touch on that real quick, and then we'll get
Yeah.
into the rest of the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So just as an organization has manufacturing facilities for the products that they produce, pallet manufacturers have manufacturing facilities for the pallets that they produce, pallets and crates, lumber, dunnage, wood packaging in general. There's a lot of things that that go into that. So they're not only purchasing the lumber to build those things, they also have to worry about the equipment that they're using. They have to worry about the saws that they're using. They have to worry about, are they milling their own lumber? Or are they purchasing their lumber from somewhere else? Are they ordering their fasteners outside of the country? Does that play a role? You know, are they ordering fasteners from inside of the country? So the manufacturing process of a pallet or crate is just as intricate as the manufacturing process of a product or material that a large organization may be selling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fascinating. I love the supply chain of a pallet. And if anybody wants to look into that or even learn more about that, you need to reach out to Mary because Mary knows all the things. All right, let's get back to supplier relationships, which we were just talking about, right? We were talking about how businesses can review their current procurement practices, where they should start, what they should look out for. One of the key things to that was the extent of the supplier's capabilities, making sure that they can not only work with you today, but they can work with you into the future. And so how can organizations then really look specifically around how these practices might be damaging their relationships or reputation, right? Like, are they seeing customer complaints,
Yeah.
quality complaints? What is the why behind all of this?
Yeah. So I think what's really important is when it comes to national pallet management programs, it's really important to know and understand the why behind the problems, quality concerns, issues that you may be seeing. How much money are you spending? Are you spending too much money? Are you spending too little money? So I think when you choose to work with a supplier, you really need to know and understand what is key is to know and understand what their added value is.
Mm,
So a lot of companies are like, okay, I just want the cheapest pallet. I need to go out. I need to figure out how little can I spend and get what I need. The problem with doing that, a big problem with doing that is that you're not seeing the value in the supplier. You have to know and understand what your suppliers can do. What are their capabilities? How can they add innovative ideas? What experience do they have that can help you do what you need to do? So that's something that Pallet Alliance already has. We've been in business for 30 years. We've been partnered with these manufacturers all over the place. So we know and understand what they do on a daily basis, what they work with, what materials they work with, what machineries they have, what saws do they have. So understanding and knowing the why behind what you order when it comes to pallets and crates is extremely important. Do you order this pallet because your customer requires it? Does your customer require softwood or hardwood? Why?
yeah.
You know, if you're ordering a hardwood pallet and you don't have access to hardwood or your supplier doesn't have access to hardwood, you've now just created a risk.
Mm-hmm.
So understanding the why behind what you do and what you order is extremely important in knowing how to connect with the right supplier to supply you exactly what you need.
Well, and let's dive into that a little bit more. I mean, I think we're going to get into specific examples in a little bit, or maybe part of the answer to this question. But set the scene for us. I mean, why is it so important that businesses don't run their procurement function in a silo, especially when it comes to pallets, right? Like, why is supplier collaboration crucial? I mean, I say this all the time, collaboration is the future of business. I feel like I know why, but I think we want to let the audience in on what some of the risks are if businesses don't adopt a more collaborative mindset. What does it mean to their supply chains? What does it mean to their sort of competitive edge and pallet strategy?
Yeah, when everybody is working in a silo, that means that everybody is on a different page. So
Mhm.
what you may be doing in finance is trying to figure out how much money are we spending on this, and you're only looking at what you're purchasing. You're not looking at how much are our customers charging us a pallet fee for when the pallet shows up and there's something wrong with it. How much financial uh issues are we facing, or what are we being fined?
Mhm.
Or what's another good one that I sometimes share with people that it really it opens up their eyes of like, oh, okay, hey, I'm using recycled pallets. I have a palletizer, but what's happening is that my pallets are getting stuck as they're coming in, as they're being palletized. Stoppage in manufacturing equals dollars.
Mhm.
Time is money. So that just means what's happening is that you're not using the right pallet for the palletizer that you have. And if you're doing that, that's costing you more money. So when it comes to the silos, when it comes to pallets, the person who knows the most about pallets in your company, the person who's actually receiving them in the door.
Mhm.
Guarantee it. I guarantee the person who's driving the forklift to remove the pallets from the truck and put them into storage knows more about the pallets than the person who may be purchasing them in procurement. So not only in procurement do they need to communicate with the sites, but they also need to communicate with finance and inform them, this is what we're seeing. So I know you want me to get a cheaper pallet, but ultimately, long-term value is what's most important, and how you're going to have cost avoidance and savings in the future if you take care of the problem that you actually have on the ground.
Well, and also I think when it comes to like quality around pallets and things like that, it can also lead into waste. So pallets have, as far as I understand it, they have a fairly long lifespan, right? And like I was talking about earlier, the product can go out on a pallet and that pallet can be reused in multiple different ways, either going back to the organization that sent it, or it can be traded and sent on for a fairly long time. In some cases, I know there's a couple of companies out there that actually refurbish their pallets, like a Chet pallet or a Pico pallet. And so they actually sent them in for refurbishment, and those are specific to a specific type of product. I think it's food and something else. And so they have to refurbish those because they have colors to them. They have red and blue and things like that. But it's so interesting how the life cycle of it. And so if you're going to do it and you're going to pay for a pallet, you want to get it right. You don't want there to be waste, and you want to be able to use it over and over and over and over again.
Absolutely. So Pallet Alliance works with some extremely large organizations. And we actually have created and started and maintained for over 15 years repair and return programs.
Hmm.
So repair and return programs are a company orders a pallet, they use it, they ship it somewhere, they have to maintain the data of where they're shipping it. If the volume is there and you can recover those pallets because wherever you ship them to may have had the opportunity to repalletize them, instead of just recycling those pallets and shipping them off, there's the opportunity to recover those pallets, send them back to a pallet manufacturer who repairs pallets, and then retrieve those pallets back in at a reduced cost of just the repair of the pallet. And they're your pallets. You maintain them as they go through. The end of life cycle is when that pallet is no longer repairable to your standards. And then those pallets need to be recycled. Maybe perhaps a recycler picks them up and reuses them again with someone else who can use them at the quality with which they are. But other than that, there's a whole sustainable aspect of the life of the pallet, which is, okay, what's next for this pallet? I can't use it anymore. No one else can use it anymore. let's tear it down, let's shred it up, let's use it for animal bedding, let's use it for mulch. All the mulch that you receive for your gardens all over the country, all over the world.
Pallets?
Pallets.
Wow.
Pallets. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
I had no idea. And actually, I'm sort of chuckling a little bit because you were saying how pallets can be used. I was just at a logistics company a couple of weeks ago, and they used it as the ceiling of their kitchen. Which I thought was amazing, and it looked really, really, really cool. So you never know where your pallets can end up. I want to give a shout out over to Dupree over on my personal LinkedIn. They say, Mary, 2 Thursdays in a row learning about pallets and crates. I guess they must have seen you last Thursday.
Yeah, I did a bit for the Institute for Supply Management, and we had a good conversation about pallets, and just I could talk about pallets forever, and everybody's just like, oh, I didn't realize there's so much to know.
2 Thursdays in a row. I love it. And I want to give a shout out over to Hillary, Javier, and Heather over on the Pallet Alliance social media as well. All right, let's get into cost. We've kind of already touched on it. We've talked about it a little bit, but it's a big consideration right now for all businesses, right? When they're thinking about budgets, they're thinking about saving money. Quick wins, direct cost cutting sometimes seems to be the approach. Talk to me about, or explain to us, like, why that might be a mistake. Like, why isn't the lowest pallet cost always the most effective choice? And I'm assuming, because you kind of touched on this before, there's a lot of risk around that.
Yeah. I was just about to say, with risk comes great responsibility, because that means a lot to people in procurement. Because if you're going to choose to take the risk because you're looking to save 5 cents now, you're going to run into a multitude of headaches down the road. If you purchase a pallet that is not built to the quality with which you need or your customers need, what's going to happen is that there's multiple things. One, you're going to have broken pallets that you're going to need to be replaced. 2, it's going to arrive at your customer and your reputation is going to be decreased, right? Why does our customer keep sending us product on pallets that keep failing,
Right.
over and over? And then that's why I think everybody has decided to start charging their suppliers with material. They've started to charge people kind of a crazy amount. I've heard some crazy amount of fees people are incurring because they are receiving poor quality pallets. But really, like you said, the risk is what is going to cost you the most money afterwards. Risk, reputation.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but I talk about this all the time. It's kind of like, where do you want to spend your risk dollars? You really want to spend your risk dollars on pallets that won't hold up over time, or that might help in the fact of destroying your product on the way to a customer?
You're destroying your product. There's safety concerns.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's been stories I've heard that people have opened the back of the truck to receive something, but the pallet has failed, so all the product has fallen. Not only did you just destroy all that product that costs a lot of money, but you also potentially could have hurt someone, which is going to cost money, because that's what insurance is for. And that is what companies pay. There are so many costs associated with total cost of ownership regarding pallets in general that impacts every other aspect of the supply chain.
Yeah. Well, and of the business too. And I think I go back to what you were talking about in collaboration, is the fact that it can't be one person making a decision on something that is so impactful across the organization. And I think that is also one of the risks, in the fact that we don't have everybody involved or have a seat at the table to talk about this, that needs to have a seat at the table to talk about this, because you think it's pallets. Right? We see pallets everywhere, pallets in the warehouse, pallets outside, and it's not something that we really necessarily take a second look at. But the ones who are taking a second look at really understand what it means to their organization, what it means to their supplier network, their supply chains, what it means to their people and the people who are on the receiving end of the product, and what it means to their customers to show up with high quality packaging that makes a difference.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. I mean, your reputation is based on your quality. I strongly believe that. Your customer service, one, it has to be impeccable. And two, your quality also has to match your impeccable customer service. You are representing yourself and your product. So to represent your if you're how do I say this? A little tongue tied on over here, but really your reputation starts from the ground up, and it starts with pallets because that's what you're shipping your product on.
Yeah. Yeah. If you think about last mile delivery, a lot of people or organizations put a lot of time, energy, money, and effort into the packaging, right? The customer experience. What does that look like when they're opening up the box? What does the box say to them? What branding do we have on the side of the box? This is, kind of a similar thing in the fact that you're not delivering one thing at a time necessarily. I mean, you might, right? Depending on what the product is. But we need to think about it in that way. It's an extension of your packaging, like your packaging strategy and what that looks like and how you want to service your customers. So how important is picking the right supplier? Now we talk about supplier collaboration. You talk about having a really good vendor network. And I would assume that not every supplier is for everyone, right? And that's why you've built up this network to make sure that you've got the right supplier for the different customers that you have. So talk to us about this supplier collaboration. How important is it and how easy is it to connect with the right supplier with the right capability to match the client's requirements?
Yeah. So everything is regional. Let's talk about like geography for a little bit.
I love geography, Mary. Thank you for taking us down
great. So with Pallet Alliance, we want to make sure that everybody who has wherever your location is, United States, Canada, or Mexico, we want to make sure that when you are securing or looking for or designing the pallet specific fit for purpose for your product, we want to make sure that the volume can be met. We want to make sure that the quality is going to be there. So that goes all the way down to the wood species that could be being used. So you need to know and understand the suppliers, what they are ordering, what they have the capacity to provide you. Can they build you a combo pallet because they get recycled material and they use new material? Can they build you a combo pallet that has hardwood and softwood because only specific parts of the pallet need to have that? Do they have the right saws? Can they produce the volume that you need because they're using nailing machines instead of individual labor to do that?
That is so interesting. And so many different things to think about, right? And I want to bring technology into the conversation because some people in the audience might be like, what does technology have to do with pallets? Well, I think, obviously we're talking about technology in a variety of different ways. We're talking about innovation in a variety of different ways that is touching on a lot of different industries. And I don't think pallets are any different. So talk to us about how we can use technology to lay a solid foundation for the future. Like, what does that look like? I mean, we're talking about collaborative relationships with suppliers. How does that boost innovation? What does technology have to do with this?
I think a lot of AI is coming out now to help pallet manufacturers to do board counts, cuts, measuring, quality checks. A lot of pallet manufacturers are starting to put money into using those certain things. But with Pallet Alliance specific, one thing that we've been working on a lot is our patented IntelliPallet technology, which is IoT technology, meaning we're able to embed GPS tracking systems into wooden pallets and then help our customers get the data they're looking for in order to set up those programs, those repair and return programs, in order to find out where their pallets end up if they have any loss, in order to track how bumpy the road is from point A to point B. Are we seeing pallet failures? Are we able to fix those failures? Can we redesign the pallet to make sure that you don't see those failures? How about the humidity in a truck? How about the temperature in a reefer? How about, are your products getting damaged? So technology is playing a big role when it comes to the logistics of materials moving from point A to point B. I really think it is the future to be able to find cost efficient ways to implement the right pallet or crate for the right product in order to make sure it arrives appropriately where it's supposed to, when it's supposed to, how it's supposed to, without being damaged.
Well, and it's so interesting in the fact that you say that, because I never would have thought that this is where we could go with pallets, but it makes so much more sense if we are really focusing on the capital that we're putting into the products that we are moving from A to B. And we think about the margins shrinking at the moment. Like, we've got so many things coming at us with tariffs. I mean, all I have to say is tariffs, I think, but tariffs and investment in technology and so many other things, the margins are shrinking and retailers have decisions to make, right? Do they pass along the extra cost to the consumer? Do they hold on with reducing their margins for a little bit longer to see what happens with the tariffs? Or do they take a look at the suppliers and the companies that they're working with that could then tweak some of the things that they're doing that could then maybe give them some of that margin back because they're not losing it to waste or they're not losing it to loss, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, in the capital of the product itself?
Absolutely. I think you just hit on something that we encourage people to do, which is take a look at the other things that are costly
Yeah.
instead of trying to just save money right now. You have to look to the future, and in order to look to the future, you have to be innovative, you have to pair with the right supplier, and you have to be aware of the market and the industry and the science behind it. And I think that's why Pallet Alliance does so well, because we want to take your current program and we want to elevate it to the next level. We want to make sure that you're getting what you need right now, so you don't face those other issues. So down the line, those aren't issues for you. You want to fix what you have right now by using the right technology, using the right innovation, partnering with the right supplier, using the right species of lumber, using the company that's going to partner with you, that's going to make you stronger. So choosing the right individual or organization to work with is what's going to be key in long-term value, long-term cost efficiency, and long-term supplier or supply chain resiliency.
Yeah. But there's
Yeah,
also you were talking earlier about reputational risk. There's also a cost to that as well that you're not necessarily going to see within your margin unless, you lose
correct.
a customer down the road or something like that. And that it kind of comes to the fact that that's one of the impacts that could happen when you are managing these costs, when you're looking at it. But it's also a huge long-term impact, right? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, we can do it both ways. We can do the long-term impact with suppliers who have the capabilities of servicing you, but if you have only been going after them to get the cheapest price, and they can say, "Hey, you're not seeing my value. I don't really want to help you. I don't want to put you first."
Mhm.
You know, and then
Oh.
yeah. So there's the opposite side of this. It's not
Mhm.
just the reputation you have selling to your customers. It's the reputation you have from buying from your suppliers
Mm.
that you could be impacting. Hey, I'm gonna hound you for 5 cents here and 5 cents there, and I need to find the savings now and find the savings later. After a while, some suppliers are gonna be like, I feel like that's all you do, and you have failed to see what added value I have.
Mhm.
You failed to see the innovation I can provide you because of the experience that I have doing this with this customer, which is competitive advantage. Because what
Mhm.
if I'm servicing someone in the same industry that we've been able to fix something over here, but you're not willing to see the value of what I have to fix what you have to be more competitive with your competitors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it could just be because some organizations are focused on that, or some organizations aren't really asking the right questions, or maybe they don't know the right questions to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a big that plays a big role. No one is in procurement is an expert with the material that they are purchasing, because I'm assuming they have to purchase 7,000 different type of material because everybody in procurement juggles 3,000 balls
Yeah.
at once.
Raw material, finished product,
Everything.
indirect.
Indirect.
Yeah,
Direct.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep, jinx. And so I strongly feel that if you don't know what questions to ask, how to ask them,
Mhm.
partner with someone who does. Partner with someone who does have the expertise with that commodity. In commodities, I'm biased. Pallet Alliance has the experts. They have the wood scientists, they have the packaging engineers, they have the wood packaging engineers. It is a science to what Pallet Alliance does in order to specifically make a fit for purpose product to individual sites too. Not that just brought up a point in my head, but you may have manufacturing facilities and you have 20 of them across the United States. Not all of those manufacturing facilities are exactly the same, which means
Yeah.
what pallet you may be using over here may not fit the equipment you're using over here to manufacture this product. So
Mhm.
not only is it intricate to organizations, it's intricate to each individual location. You have to find a partner who is willing to dive into that with you, but you also have to be the partner who is willing to dive into that with your supplier, who can
Yeah.
provide you with those added value.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. I want to give a shout out because we've got a couple of questions in the comments. If anybody has any questions, now's the time to put it in the comments because we are just a few minutes away from answering all of your questions right now. So definitely put those in the comments. We're going to get to those in just a minute. Now, I want to talk about data because you talked about IntelliPallet, and I have to tell you, I mean, supply chain companies and professionals are one of the best at naming technology. I just have to say. So IntelliPallet, I love that you named it that. You talked about what it does and how it tracks. But I think that it also collects data. And we've been talking about data for a very long time in supply
Yeah,
chain. It's so important, but sometimes we're still struggling to get exactly what we need. So talk to
absolutely.
us. Yeah, talk to us about how IntelliPallet captures the data. What does the real-time visibility and data sharing do for customers? How does it have an impact on cost? I know I'm throwing a lot at you right now, but I
That's
really
okay.
want to get a handle on that data and what it would do for your customers.
Yeah, I think right now, I get to attend a lot of procurement conferences all year, and a big topic of conversation is AI. You can't implement a successful AI endeavor unless you have the correct data to put into that, because if not, you're just getting false information and it's not going to be helpful. But when it comes to IntelliPallet or the work that Pallet Alliance does, we want to make sure that you are the most up to date with everything that you have. So with IntelliPallet, the data that it collects, it is uploaded. Pallet Alliance provides Tableau platforms for all of our customers for their individual locations, specific to those individual locations, that you can hammer down and get the information that you need. On the other hand, we also specifically maintain the data when it comes to spend, volume, and whatever specific KPIs you're looking for. If you're looking for sustainability, you want to know your CO2 emissions, so on and so forth. All of that data is compiled into one report for all of our individual customers. And based off of the KPIs that they are looking for, that's what we record for them. So if they need the data to implement into their system for sustainability purposes, we can provide them with the accurate, up-to-date data based off of what they're trying to reach. Again, I'm going to reiterate, AI functions will not work appropriately unless the data is accurate. And I think a lot of companies are on adventures right now trying to find the accurate data for their processes. So I feel like our largest impact, Pallet Alliance, when it comes to technology, innovation, and data, is going to be being able to provide our customers with the information they're looking for them to implement that data into their AI adventure.
But I also think that you can help find money. And hear me out here.
Oh, okay.
Because I think there is a lot of pallets out there that we don't know are out there or where they are. And there's a lot of money out there in pallets because we have to buy pallets, right?
Mhm.
And so if they're sitting in a yard somewhere and we don't even know, and there's 10 pallets over there, I mean, that could be probably over $100 now, I would assume.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it depends on the size of the pallet, right?
Yeah.
Every pallet is different. 4840 is just not your basic size anymore. There are hundreds of millions of different specifications.
And so think
So,
about it. If you've got pallets all over the place and you didn't even quite realize that you've got pallets all over the place, you're literally leaving money on the floor. And so if you can track it and you can get the data as to where your pallets are and what they're doing for you, instead of them just sitting in a pile somewhere because somebody's forgotten about them, I think you can find some money with Pallet Alliance, don't you think?
oh, I'm pretty positive. Specifically, it's been proven. We've done it. We're still doing it. We have customers who've been with us for over 15 years, and they're still finding continuous improvement opportunities and cost savings. I
Love
mean,
it.
it's because they took the time to ask us what our other capabilities are and asked us, hey, do you think we could start using IntelliPallet to find where our pallets are? We think we're losing pallets somewhere in this realm of our supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
Can you help us do that? And of course we can help you do that. We just have to do a subset of pallets that you're currently ordering so we can embed those GPS tracking systems. It doesn't interfere with anything that you're doing. And then from there, we will do studies and track these pallets for you. Where do they end up? We've had pallets end up in Hawaii that started off in Maine. Why?
Wow.
How did that pallet get to Hawaii? Who knows? I'm sure 10 different companies used it, and one company who shipped stuff to Hawaii ended up putting their product on it. You know, there's opportunity to be sustainable, and there's opportunity to find cost savings. I think another avenue for cost savings is in pallet redesign. You need to know and understand what you're currently using in order to be able to ask our tech team at Pallet Alliance to take a look at this pallet. Why is it costing you this much money? What are you seeing? How can we change it? How can we make it better? How can we reduce the lumber you're using, both cost effectively and sustainably? We want to make what you're doing better.
Love that. So I want to throw in an audience question right now, because this whole time we've been sitting here, you've been talking about wood pallets and I've been thinking about plastic pallets, and God's Way put in a comment about plastic pallets. And I just feel like I have to touch on this right now. So the question is there any way in the future plastic pallets will replace wood pallets?
I think the answer to that, and this is going to be a personal response, I think the answer to that is no. The CO2 emissions for plastic pallets is way higher than using wood. I also think that what we do now with forestry and how we have these tree farms, trees that used to take 80 years to grow are now taking 20 years to grow. And I think more companies, tree companies, so on and so forth, are being more proactive with planting, harvesting, so on and so forth. Wood is good. Wood will always be number one. Wood is, 95% recyclable.
Well, and think about it. If
Yeah,
you get better at tracking it, you have better data, and
correct.
you make a better use of the pallet in a variety of different ways, right? The reusability,
Correct.
the returnability, et cetera, et cetera. I think you're right. I think that if we take care of the pallets, they're going to take care of us.
Absolutely.
I think you should use that slogan, although I'm going to go and trademark it right now.
Go ahead.
All right. If anybody else has any other questions, we're going to get to that in just 1 second. I just want to ask you about, because we've been talking about collaboration with suppliers. And I think it's important that we touch on this really quickly around what's the first thing that people can do to really cultivate a trusted supplier partnership, because that will create supply chain stability, sorry,
Yeah.
even during disruptions. Like, this is really important for supply chain right now. And you really work within a very robust supplier partnership network. I mean, focused on pallets, but it still means the same things to everybody, no matter what they're looking at or thinking about. So what's kind of the first thing they should think about around cultivating trusted supplier partnerships?
I think transparency is key. I think that if you want a supplier to trust you, you have to be willing to share information that is vital to that supplier, telling you whether or not they can help you.
Data. Mm-hmm.
Data. Yeah. Yeah. I think open and honest conversation with what your goals are. What are your goals? What are you looking for? And then I think from there, open communication back and forth. I think being open to hearing someone else's viewpoint on what you could be doing. There are times when in this industry, you can mention something to someone that you notice that they're seeing, or you notice that they're doing, excuse me, that that I feel like being open to conversation of, hey, what you currently are doing is probably not the best avenue for you to take, and we can help you by doing XYZ.
Yeah.
So again, transparency, openness, and being straightforward with what exactly you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
If you just want to purchase pallets and save 5 cents, then I feel like as a supplier, you should be open and honest and say, okay, I don't think you see my value. Perhaps someone else can help you do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think if you're on the procurement side and you're like, I do have to find cost savings, but I'm not just in it to find cost savings right now. I'm in it to find the long-term cost efficiency.
But also, it's not just the cost savings on the product itself, the pallet itself, right?
Yeah.
Maybe the conversation or the question really is, where can I find cost savings within my pallet strategy that could be costing me money in other places, right?
Then the next best thing to do with your pallet and crate category is to reach out to Pallet Alliance and allow us to do a free audit of what you're currently doing.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what's wrong or right if you don't know what's happening, or you don't know where the issue lies, or you don't know why isn't this working.
Yeah.
Find the expert who will find the why for you if you don't know the why.
Yeah. So God's way, I see your other question. I'm going to have Mary answer that offline a little bit after this conversation. I do have a couple of other audience questions to get through. So one question is, could you share an example of what collaboration looks like in practice between Pallet Alliance and a customer? I love this because I love a good case study question. If you can paint a picture of how you've worked with a customer. So they came to you, they got the free audit. What did that look like? What was the problem you solved for them? Talk to us.
Yeah. Off the top of my head,
yes, we're putting you on the spot.
Right on the spot. We've had customers come to us, ask us a question. Hey, do you think you could take a look at what we're currently doing? Absolutely. But here's all of our specifications, Pallet Alliance, before you come on site and do your audit to see what we're currently getting. We receive all the specifications, we read through, we notice a couple of dates on those specifications are a little old. And then we're like, okay, I wonder what they're currently getting. So when we send our tech team to individual locations to take a look at the pallets, we're doing an all up and down audit. It's a holistic approach to pallet program management. We want to make sure we're taking a look at everything involved. How do you receive your pallets? How are they being delivered? What type of pallets are you getting? What machinery interactions is it having? Do you have conveyor systems? Are they belts? Are they rollers? The list goes on forever. One of the things that we see most often is the specifications with which customers provide are not what they're currently getting.
Wow.
So we show up on site, we will measure pallets we show up with our little measuring tapes, and we go in and we measure everything, and we check out the species of lumber that your spec calls for. We check out the sizes of the boards that you're getting, and more oftentimes than not, what we find is what you say you are ordering in the specification that you have is not what you're currently getting. So working with Pallet Alliance, we will present that information to you. And then what we will do based off of what we measured is we will create a specification based off of what we're measured and say, hey, this is what you're currently getting.
And then what you can possibly do for them, or what would be the smarter approach, I would assume.
Yeah, we like to present solutions to what's currently happening. And it could be multiple solutions. It could be one solution. It could be 5 solutions. But we find that if we are aware of what you currently are getting is not what you say you're getting, we want to make sure that you're updating your data.
Yeah. Well, and that they have access to the right tools so that they know that long term this strategy is going to work for them.
Correct. And then we want to help manage that program, and that's all the way through the ordering process, the logistics process, the aligning with the appropriate supplier in the right region. So
I love that.
Yeah.
I want to get to another question, because we've sort of touched on sustainability. We haven't touched on it too much. We've talked a little bit about waste. So this question that comes from the audience: how can aligning with suppliers on sustainability and repair programs drive long-term value?
I think if everybody's on the same page, if you have a goal specifically for sustainability, and you are working with someone else who knows and understands the goals of working in a sustainable environment, you then can work together to find those opportunities to be more cost efficient as well as sustainable. If that makes sense.
That does make sense. And I mean, realistically, at the end of the day, when we think about sustainability, everybody thinks they have to do it alone.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I feel like teamwork makes the dream work. Right? I have always said that teamwork makes the dream work. And if you can put a team together that understands the goals of all parties involved, why not work with a group of people who understand your process, understand what you need, can present solutions to those problems or goals, and then work together to get there. That is what creates a good relationship with a supplier, is that what are your goals? Can we help you get there? If we can, let's work together. Let's communicate. Let's have an open dialogue. Let's reach together, because what you're doing then is creating that resilient supply chain that when a problem does arise, you do collaborative risk mitigation.
I like that one. I haven't heard that one before. Collaborative risk mitigation. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So good. Now, earlier you talked about total cost of ownership. This question from the audience talks about that. And I wonder, do you have, I don't know if you have a checklist or a short list of things that we should be considering. What things can companies specifically consider when it comes to total cost of ownership for pallets? Do you have a top 5 that would be included in total cost of ownership, or maybe you need to come up with a checklist and send it their way?
I can definitely come up with a checklist and send it your way, but I think it's all very individualized to companies.
Okay.
What do you like? I mentioned it earlier, of just how are you receiving pallets? How are they delivered to you? What machinery are you using to move them around? What suppliers are you working with? Do you have current contracts? Do you have, there's so many things to consider. It's very customer specific. So, or industry specific, it could be as well. But I think if anyone who's listening, anyone wants a specific list to take a gander at, please reach out. reach out to me, LinkedIn, however you want to reach.
Well, I
Call
think
Pallet Alliance.
Yeah, I think it's important, right? Because all of those things that you listed have a cost component to it. And so how do you
Yep.
figure out what part of the cost of, let's say, the receiving of the pallets can go towards one pallet? What's the percentage? What does that look like? Then you can really dig into it and figure out what that total cost of ownership is for the pallets. And then you can even take it one step further and go to like the cost to serve model that I was talking about before, and cost to serve your customer as well. And so that really touches on the margins and where your margins actually are, right? Because sometimes you think it's, 20%, 25%, 50%. It could look a lot differently once you get the total cost of ownership of what your supply chain actually looks like and the cost to serve the customers. All right.
Absolutely.
I've got one more question for you. What do you want to leave the audience with today? Like, what are some of the big takeaways from our discussion that you would love everybody to walk away either thinking about or taking action on?
I think one big thing to take away is if you don't know something, be open to reaching out to someone who might be an expertise in that category or commodity, right? So if you don't know everything about pallets, reach out to Pallet Alliance and have a conversation about pallets. Ask us the questions you have. We're a knowledge sharing center. We love to teach. We love to learn with you. And then the next thing would be, start thinking about being transparent with your suppliers, whatever commodity you are working with them on. Just start getting transparent. Start researching what their added value is. Start looking into, can they help us with this project? I really think transparency, communication, everything is key.
Well, and I think the last question to really ask yourselves, your procurement teams, your supply chain teams, what is our pallet strategy costing us right now? Do we even know the answer to that? And if we don't know the answer to that, I really want to encourage everyone to go and figure out what the answer is to that. Like, get the free audit, figure out what that looks like, and really better understand where you're spending your money and what your margins actually look like.
Absolutely.
Well, that is all the time we have for. A big thank you to Mary for joining me again. I love the conversation. I mean, I know everyone is worrying about costs right now, managing limited budgets, but if you're really you've really brought to life this idea of a bit of a false economy, or not knowing what you don't know. If you're making decisions based solely on cost, you're not necessarily making the right choice. There's a bunch of other important considerations you need to factor in. And if you don't, it's going to end up actually probably costing you more down the line. So if you're looking for that free audit, if you're looking for a collaborative partner to bring innovation, shared value, and responsibility, plus long-term resilience, check out Pallet Alliance at tpai.com. Mary, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you to all of you for joining us today. And I can't wait to do this again soon. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye, guys.